This is episode 33 of Cowboy Shit with Ted and Wacey, brought to you by Everything Cowboy.
We've actually been doing this for a while now, hey?
It's crazy, man. Even like just this year in general, like it seemed like January was like taking forever. Then all of a sudden, just like February, it's over.
This weekend, Lethbridge PBR.
Yeah, first event.
Jacked.
Well, not really the first
Second
event. Just
PBR
kidding.
of the year.
Second event.
Yeah. One of the best ones we have all year, though, hey?
In my opinion, that's like the best event.
It's great.
Just like the crowd's so good there.
Oh, yeah.
The
College
whole-
town, good
The
times.
city, yeah, it's a fun place to hang out for a couple days.
Yeah.
There's always some good rides. And usually, like, you see, like, if a guy does well there, they usually end up on tour at some point.
Yeah, I guess so. And I guess this year, I think, well, we won't talk specifics, but I mean, at least 170 world points with
And you can make a pretty big move with that
Monster.
amount.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
good. Sweet, man. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
so Lethbridge, then we got TP Creek next week, then we got Calgary in a week, and 22nd and 3rd, and then you go on to the 21st is the tarp auction.
Ski race, 20th.
Ski race is April 20th, but
Or we're talking March.
yeah, we're talking March because that's what time
Then
it
we go
is.
to Invermere.
Invermere hockey at
with
the end
the
of the
boys.
month. Yeah, so we got a big month. March is a big month, and it starts getting warm. The days are longer. Like, it's just a great time. It's exciting time to be alive.
It's nice, yeah. Even like when you go out at like 4 o'clock and you go somewhere that you're inside, and it's still light out when you come
still
outside.
light
It's
out.
so nice.
Welcome.
I'm a big fan of that. And even like today, when we're recording, like it's sunny day out, Calgary.
Yeah.
The last 2 days here have been absolutely terrible. Like
We've
it's been
got
like windy and snowy.
blizzards.
I got stuck.
Snow drifts.
Yeah.
Stuff happens. So enough of that stuff. How was the date? This is
Bachelor
the
update.
First
Bachelor update.
We're gonna do a Bachelor update every show, I think, from here out.
I mean, we put a lot of it into that podcast.
That
so
was-
you guys deserve an update.
Probably a new highlight podcast so far. It seems like every one we do.
Hopefully,
is
let's
getting
hope it doesn't have to be
better.
an annual thing.
Maybe we should just book the next one.
Yeah, fuck.
Well,
With my track record,
We should
might
probably
have to.
book. We should probably book Eddie in for the next
Pre-book,
one. He
pre-book.
was already scouting everything out.
Yeah, he was trying to hijack the show. You could
I think
just
he
feel
was,
that vibe.
yeah.
Which is like I
He probably
get
got
it.
a date out of it. We've already. He just hasn't told anyone about it.
Yeah, that's true. We'll find out in due time. I'm sure he'll post
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah.
But no, it's Abigail and I. We hung out a couple weeks ago, and it was nice. There will definitely be a second date,
There's already been like 3
maybe
dates.
a third date. We've hung out a few times. It's been going well. She's a
Yeah.
pretty cool girl.
You got stuck at her house.
Got stuck at her house yesterday.
Was that on purpose?
No, unfortunate. Well, maybe it was. I could say it was, but
Because you stayed over.
yeah,
Ooh.
yeah. Unfortunately got stuck in a snowbank.
Unfortunately, quotation marks.
a snowdrift.
I got stuck. I
I'm
can't
stuck.
go home.
A snowdrift in the middle of their yard. But yeah, no, all is well. Things are on the right track. So stay tuned for the next episode for next update.
I'm still working on that GC for you.
Yeah, we're still waiting for Teddy to give us the prize that was promised for.
Yeah.
No, we haven't received anything for the keg yet.
But
hopefully by the next podcast, Teddy will have the gift card ready and we can go
Eventually.
buy.
I'm working on it.
Buy one appetizer with our $25 gift card.
I'm
to the
working on
keg.
it, okay?
Maybe a couple glasses of wine.
Yeah, maybe one.
Probably just one.
One plus a tip.
Yeah, no.
It might
doubt.
just be you just getting lunch there sometime.
Yeah, just not even take a date. Just me by myself.
Yeah.
Can I get your cheapest appetizer, please? I only have a $25 budget.
Also happened since the last podcast, the Hannah Cowboys hockey tournament.
Huge news. This is the biggest news of 2019 so far.
Big Valley Cowboys.
Champions.
This is where we play We Are the Champions by Queen.
We are the champions.
Also watched Bohemian Rhapsody last night.
Hot film.
Great film.
Okay, we can't. We gotta stick on the hockey though. People need to know about
That's what they played when we won.
We need to go. We went on a 3-0 run on the weekend.
At the Hannah tournament.
We were untouchable.
Well, it was thanks to some good goaltending by Gator. He gave us a chance.
He gave us a chance.
I got a goal against him.
Man, you were your goal game guy.
Did I get 2 or did I get 1?
Teddy scored a big goal in the final.
I think I only got 2 goals, but I got some apples.
Better than no goals.
Nice assist in that same game.
Oh yeah, you passed on a 2-on-1 first
Yeah,
time in your life.
First time.
Yeah, that was such a sweet weekend, man. Especially
It
like
was fun.
as much as we've been talking about it on the podcast, like I'm sure you guys are sick about hearing about the Hannah hockey tournament.
But we're the
like,
champs.
yeah, we said it like one of the first times we ever mentioned like this is the year we're gonna win, and
Yeah,
we
that's
did
true.
it, and like there was no
did
way,
it.
there's no way we were losing that.
And Wacey did very well in the net, and he
Stopped a couple bucks.
He stopped a former AHL hockey player.
Yeah,
He wasn't really a factor that game.
they're all pretty hungover. Those guys.
That's true. They
We
were up to, like, 4 or 5
we drew a
o'clock
good straw with them being
Playing them
hungover,
at 10 a.m.
and me not wanted. Like I would have sacrificed a baby to win that tournament.
Oh dear.
But yeah, huge news. Next year we go back to defend for the 30th anniversary of the Cowboy tournament.
30 years.
It's gonna be a huge
a
deal.
lot.
Yeah. So we'll be able to cool it on the hand hockey tournament talk for a few episodes.
Well, we can now. We're the champs.
We're the champs. We got to rub it in. We got bragging rights for you.
For anyone else that listens to the pod that actually knows what we're talking about.
Ever since we've been the champs.
Also that weekend, PBR Global Cup, Arlington, Texas.
Yeah, big time event.
Team Canada, rough goal.
Yeah.
Let's break it down a little bit. Let's talk about the
I think
Team
like
Canada.
It wasn't without a lack of effort. It was
Yeah.
just one of those deals where like there was like how many 7-second bull rides were there on the first day?
I think 3.
Yeah, and then
And they rode what? Only rode one bull that
yeah,
day.
exactly. So just like I think just a matter of that's just bull riding where it's like some days are diamonds and some days are dirt, and that whole weekend was pretty much dirt.
A lot of dirt.
And it sucks too when two of your better guys get hurt in the first day too. Like you lose Tanner Byrne and
Yeah,
Lonnie
to a
West. Like
concussion,
those
lose
are
Lonnie.
two of your guys you were hoping to rely on.
Yeah.
And then those are also
And you don't have Brock already.
exactly one of your top guys.
Yeah.
And you see like there's like the first day like maybe Jared should have stayed on that bull.
Yeah.
But he wasn't easy by any means. But
No, but still need that score,
You gotta
right?
find a way-
When
find
it
a-
goes by
yeah.
scores, you just got to get the whistle,
find a way
right?
to stay on. And like
I don't
that
know.
bull that Lonnie got on, like that's a bull he rides
Shoulda
a
rode,
lot. Yeah. So it's just
Yeah.
one of those things where you have a bad day
Yeah.
and it's just turned out to be a bad day for the whole team. And it just kind of
Yeah.
rolled into Sunday too, right? Like,
Well, and it just started off like I had a really bad feeling. Were we watching? We were watching on the way back to Calgary
on
or
the way
something?
back to Hannah.
No,
So
on
we're-
Saturday we were watching on the way
Oh
down.
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So we fired it up on the way home, and Dakota starts it off on Rising Sun, and it's like this is like it kind of would
That's your home run. Like
Right.
that's the one you know is going to be
kind of set the tone, and then that bull has a bad day.
And like, what are the chances of that? Like 2
Right.
weeks before that, Jess Lockwood had gotten that bull, and he had
Yeah,
the same
won
trip and was
Chicago on
90
him.
points on him. Like,
Yeah.
what are the chances?
And it's a bull that Dakota's rode before too. He was 90 on him in Milwaukee.
And I think that was the matter too of like how he left. Like when Dakota honored that bull, he really bucked it hard in the shoot. I think maybe that was a tribute to him like having an off day. But
That's just it starts like that, and it's like we really needed that one because there's 18 outs over 2 days,
and
and
you need 12 scores. Right?
12 scores, and it was
Yeah.
1 on 11, but still like that's only 7 buck offs, and like nothing against our guys or anything like that, but like the numbers just aren't quite the same. Like for our guys to win, they've got to like really step up and ride those extra bulls. Where we needed that score with Dakota, we needed Jared to get that score on that second bull, and he went to 7 seconds. And then with those first 2, the team just kind of I could feel it from here. Like
Well, it was like a
everybody's
domino. It was a domino
super
effect,
deflated,
right?
Yeah.
Like you're one guy you can count on.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that Dakota didn't try or like.
No, he
like,
tried his ass off.
Just that matter.
Just didn't work,
Yeah,
right?
it just didn't work out, and that's bull riding, unfortunately. Like,
Yeah.
you see a lot, like week to week with a lot of guys, like even like Chase Outlaw, he'll go 3 for 3 one weekend, the next week
Yeah,
he
get
won't
bucked
even
off a
stay.
couple.
He won't even stay on anything.
Where
right?
another thing too is that Aaron hadn't been on many bulls. Like Aaron went to probably went to Saskatoon was the last time he got on anything. He might have been on some practice bulls. I don't know this.
Yeah,
for sure.
did he go to Winnipeg?
He did go to Winnipeg, but
Yeah.
but he hasn't been on that level of bulls.
Yeah, well, you
recently
see
right?
that bull he got on the first day, like right
Yeah.
into his hand, like a bull that like,
6 years ago.
Aaron would have ate up.
Yeah,
back in
exactly.
his-
Even 2016 when he's on tour the whole year, like
Yeah.
he would have been there. But like it just I wish that guys would have done better, and it wasn't for a lack of effort.
No, that's the thing. Just
Nothing
one of,
against
just one
them,
of
like,
those,
they just
one of
wouldn't
those
work
deals
out.
where, and like when you're competing against like the Americans are so good, like they're like, both teams,
Both
like the
teams.
Eagles and the Wolves, like
Yeah.
those guys are really good. Like they're
and they're
top
top ranked
guys.
guys, right? Like
Yeah.
nothing, and same thing like Dakota, but Dakota and Tanner are kind of like out of the. I guess we don't even have a guy in the top 30 right now, do we? Dakota. When I looked after St. Louis, it was like, we don't have a guy in the top 30 right now. Lonnie's out.
Yeah,
Brock's out. Yeah, we don't. So you have a look at that. You got like Stetson Lawrence is up there, top 15, top 20, or has been. Ryan Dirt Eater won Oklahoma City the week before,
Well,
and then
Cody Jesus is like one of the hot
yeah,
shots on tour right
Cody
now.
Colton Jesse's doing really well right
Yeah,
now. Where
Keyshawn rides a few.
our
good
guys
bulls.
kind of haven't been as hot, so it's kind of a different deal. But I mean, too bad.
They are top ranked guys. Like Tanner, Dakota, and Lonnie are like they're top.
Yeah,
they're
are,
top
yeah.
ranked guys.
But they're not
Just-
top 10
They're not.
is
They're
what I'm
not. They're
saying.
not hot right now.
What do we have? 10 Canadian champion on our team, and the Eagles had like 8 world champions.
Yeah, no,
it's
for
kind of like
sure.
a little
There's
different.
a bit of a separation there. Well, even with the Brazilians and the Americans, is a
Oh, yeah.
separation too, right? Like those guys all like ride over 40% of their bulls.
Well, and
they're-
some of those guys came over here for the first time.
yeah,
Right?
Yeah. So it's tough. I mean,
Yeah.
But the nice thing about it is like Canada, like going into the next one, like they still have a chance. Like
Oh yeah.
it's just a matter of
I think they're going to show up and really kick ass at one. It's
I
just a
think-
matter of
yeah.
time and just the things working out. And I mean, hey, you can only go up from here now.
Yeah, exactly. You only get so low before you start going back up.
Exactly.
And like but like, you change the dynamic of the first day, and those 7-second bull rides turn into
Yeah.
rides, and fucking
Bam.
rides.
Bam.
That
Game
changed
changer.
the whole dynamic of the weekend, right?
Then you beat Mexico, you beat Australia, and you're third, and it's not as big of a deal.
Well, that gets that confidence for the team too, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, we got a good show coming up here. This is part 2 of the Roncast.
Part 2.
Ron MacLean from Hockey Night in Canada.
You've been waiting for it.
Hometown hockey.
Here it comes.
He's coming up after this.
You're listening to episode 33 of Cowboy Shit with Ted and Wacey. The guys talked with Ron back in September. Let's just dive back in and let's get Ron's take on rodeo.
I think the sport is great, and I think it's great because it's traditional, like baseball. I think we're always going to be in that complicated arena of trying to say that to the animal activists or to say to the people who are really. It's funny. There's more gun violence, right? It seems like, but people will always equate hockey and football and rodeo with danger, but they don't mind a figure skater without a helmet. So it's a really frustrating thing when I wrote a little article, a fun article, mostly for children, about sitting and watching the rodeo with my standard schnauzer Jackson and just explaining to him, why rodeo is great and why the animals are happy as a lark. Just because I feel that, when I come out to do the Stampede, I'll get lots of social media criticizing me for partaking in this, old-fashioned violent abuse of animals, and frustrating, right? But how am I you can't convince people against their will. A man unconvinced against his will is unconvinced still. So it's no sense to waste your breath. I used to get the hugest kick out of listening to Bob Tom, maybe out of Cloverdale's, one of the rodeos that gets the most protests. But it's great. I wouldn't worry. I think the setup is fabulous. The money is there. I really wouldn't change a thing.
I remember reading that story. It was on the Sportsnet website this summer. Was it just after the Stampede or just before, or when was it that you wrote that? About when you're sitting with your dog and watching it on TV.
Yeah, it was during the rodeo. So
yeah,
you can Google it at cbcsports.ca. It's an article called just Ron MacLean and the Calgary Stampede will get you to it. I've written a blog every couple of years, when I come into Calgary, but this year, and it was funny because I talked about Heather Weatherly taking control of a horse in Kurt Bensmiller's barn, which I just made a guess that it was Ace that was acting up. And I remember talking to Jordy Fike's wife, and she said, well, you picked a good horse. If you're wrong, you picked a good horse to use as the example, because Ace is kind of that way. But yeah, it was just a little bit about the relationship between a human and the animal and how vital that is. Again, everything is so polarizing now in our world. You're Trump or you're non-Trump. You're Trudeau or you're non-Trudeau. Everybody's got to have a yay or an A or a thumbs up or a dislike or a like. I think rodeo is always taught against that beautifully. Cowboys, as an example, they don't want to be labeled an American or a Canadian. They want to be a cowboy. And the fact that you work with animals and the fact that you flirt with death and, you don't suck the risk out of life, all those things are great lessons, for people. Dwayne Danes is just a great, simple example. I don't wish Dwayne to have to go through some of the hassles of rehab and some of the things you don't get to do, but you get to do other things. And rodeo people always understand that. They see a bright side. And they see a little summoning of courage. So that's why I wrote the article. It's kind of, like I say, it's a little bit of a children's tale, but it's to let you understand that the animal has to be happy. My dog is a working dog, and my dog's not happy if it's not doing things like great, horses rodeo. So that was what that was about.
I found it here. It's called Eavesdropping on Ron MacLean's Stampede Conversation with His Dog. So it's on the CBC
That's the
website.
One. So you might get a kick out of it. The woman who co-wrote my books, Cornered and Hockey Towns, Kirsty McClellan Day, she texted to say how much she enjoyed it. And my wife's sister, who's a principal, I'm not bragging, but I'm just saying people that are not lost their minds, because one of my friends that I play hockey with thought I had lost my mind. So there's always two sides to the story. And that's kind of the point. There's always two sides to the story.
Oh, yeah. And you've got to tell what your perception of it is, basically, or what you understand of it when it's...
That's right. Yeah. And I remember Chad Harden as a chuck wagon driver when one of his horses, he fell out of the wagon 2 years ago, and he went running down the track trying to save not just his horses, but to try and save the other riders, because that's not a good thing to have a, runaway wagon. But the spirit of the rodeo, is something that I am just so grateful to experience every year. I always will do it for as long as we can.
Well, we sure appreciate having you there too. That's, I think it's the coolest thing, and I look forward to seeing you there for many more years.
Yeah, as long as Tolman does it, which will be at least another 20.
Exactly. You mentioned Kirsty and your 2 books. Is there another one on the way, or I just want to talk
Not
books
right
for a while?
now, because I just feel like I can't find the time. And Kirsty's good. She'd put good words in my mouth if I wanted her to, but I don't want her to. I want to be able to truly contribute. So one day when it slows a bit again, then I would love to do another. And, that I think, some of the lessons from people that I've met are always good. There's a book, Tim Ferriss, I believe, has Tribe of mentors and
Yeah.
just books that are compilations of the wisdom of the people you intersect. And just like you, Ted and Wacey, you get such a kick out of that. That's why you're doing the podcast. I would love to do a book and sort of revisit some of those that I've been lucky enough to enjoy. And then I'd also like to interview a couple of people that I've never had the chance to speak with. Louis Lapham is the longtime editor of Harper's Magazine, and he has a blog and a podcast and a magazine called Lapham's Quarterly. His name is spelled Lapham, and he's just a great essayist, and I'd love to interview him. I'd love to interview an essayist from Chicago named Joseph Epstein, who was introduced to me by Doc Seaman of the Calgary Flames ownership group. He sponsored the university in Regina, or Saskatchewan, I guess it was Saskatchewan, and he sponsored a program out there. Jennifer McLennan was the professor, and she told me about Joseph Epstein. And I love all these writers. Kurt Vonnegut's dead now, but the people that I read to try and figure out how the hell I'm going to say big hockey game tonight in a different way, you end up reading a lot. I wish I had when I was young. I didn't, but now I do. So I'm going to read for a little while longer, and then maybe when it slows down, book 3.
What are you reading right now? I had that wrote down as something I wanted to ask you. I remember reading your book Cornered. That was a big part of it.
I'm reading Bleeding Blue by Wendell Clark. I just finished a book called 21 Things You Didn't Know About the Indian Act by Bob Joseph. So that's obviously in preparation for that issue is really big, Truth and Reconciliation. So I'm trying to, make sure I understand and get wind of all the ways to treat that right. I'm reading a book about music and people called Leftover People, by a guy named Brent Jensen from Sudbury. And that's a neat one for me because music, we always use music in our openings, and I'm so lost, sadly, on the hip-hop scene, which is really a big part of our modern music. But at least rock and roll still lives to some extent, and that book is teaching me some ideas about songs and lessons. And again, I'm stealing. I'm forever freaking plagiarizing to try and figure out how to freshen up, the next on camera. And you guys know that's the gig, right? So I'm constantly reading. Watching Charlie Sampson, who I think scored an 85 to win it, but I'd like to know what he marked on that final goal. But
in 1984?
I know one thing. Yeah, it was 84 or maybe it was 85, but maybe it was 84. I thought it was 85 that he won, but we'll have to test my memory on that for sure. But he definitely had a great performance somewhere in there.
Wacey used to ride too, Ron. He won the CC in 2015 and 14.
Well, I admire you greatly, Wacey, for doing it because it's just such an exciting and just such a great sport. JB Mooney, obviously, just see his wanting to do it, right? After all those injuries, he loves it through and through. And, Scotty Schiffner, just to hear him was really, really impressive to see the love of it. And Don Cherry always said the one great thing about bull riding or rodeo, in hockey, the toughest guys are the fighters. And Don Cherry said, you get a conscience when you're about 32 years old and you just can't do it anymore. You cannot fight for the sake of the fight. That's a really tough place to be in when you're in the throes of a battle. Whereas for Scott, eventually, I don't care who you are, your conscience kicks in, and you got to think about family or yourself or whatever you think. Enough is enough. You tell me, Wacey. But it was neat to see Scott and JB Mooney this past summer at the bull riding, and just think, wow, where their heads must be getting on those bulls. Couldn't have been easy.
Oh, not easy at all. Well,
pretty amazing. Yeah.
I'm looking back at these numbers too, Ron, and Charlie won it in 85. Dale Johansson won Calgary in 84. Wacey Cathy won it 83. And Dale won again in 82. Then you got Greg Schlosser, another Canadian, won 86. Jim Sharp's 87. Those are those first few years. But you're bang on with Charlie winning in 85. That would have been the year you beat Wacey, like you're saying.
Yeah, that's it.
Let's talk about Ty Posabon a little bit, and I want to talk concussions a little bit, and hockey, rodeo, bull riding, kind of what are your thoughts on all that?
Well, as you know, it's a loaded field. Eric Lindros is a dear friend, and he's a guy that thinks there should be hitting in hockey, but he doesn't think it should be in kids hockey. We're still, unfortunately, a ways away from figuring out how to truly mark the injuries and decide, what the baseline test is that will be working, in letting us, when in doubt, keep them out is the wisdom that we're going with for the time being. But it's a big question. And I wish I had an answer for you. I like anyone else, I go to the concussion seminars and I speak and hear from doctors, and there's just a little bit of a minefield of, not misinformation, but different information to try and sift through. So the big thing is I think at least there's that, understanding that we will never stigmatize the guy that chooses to bull ride in a helmet. That's one kind of, I think, important gain, that it just lets you, be who you are and how you feel comfortable and still partake. So that's about the only thing with respect to bull riding. The Posabon, the mental illness that results in suicide is just, it is a crushing topic. And I don't know, in my experience listening to Let's Talk and all our different attempts to try and make a conversation be a cathartic, and a healing factor. It seems noble, but I'm not sure where we're at with that. I just don't know how to tell you if you're feeling. I hope you feel safe. That's feel safe to come out and explain. But it's a tough nut. I remember one of my hockey playing buddies had a concussion, and his agent said, "You mentioned that, we're doomed. You're in line for a big contract. You cannot go and get a second opinion." So it's the ugly side of sport, that you have to protect and hide injury in order to carry on and not let your competition, especially in a team game, know that you're suffering. So, like I said, I wish I had an answer, and those things seem to sort themselves out, like everything in life.
I'm not sure if there is an answer yet either.
I just wish I had something for you. Eric Lindros's See the Line Symposium in London is a really good one, and you have, in Calgary, they have one of the top programs, and top doctors are all in Calgary, so everybody knows kind of what to do, but it's just it's a loaded question right now, and medicine will ultimately have the final say. It really will. If that they have to sort of change the rules of engagement, I think that's what it'll happen. Doctors will say, you could be sued over this, and if they say that, changes are going to come down the pike.
I'm curious, in your first book, Cornered, you mentioned was it anxiety? Did you have panic attacks at one point when you were
crazy? Yeah, crazy panic attacks, and that's so that was my little mental.
Yeah.
I kept it a secret. Who wants to try and move from the midnight DJ to the prime time 4:00 in the afternoon slot or the morning show and let your boss know that you're suffering anxiety? It never seems to work. The person that I got to be careful how I say this, but in Toronto they traded DeMar Rosen not long after he explained his issues with mental illness, and you could say that it was for a better player, and you hope that that's what it was, and it probably was. But there's always going to be that worry that if you speak out about your vulnerability, that you will be cast aside. And I was I thought for sure, Wacey and Ted, that I was the only guy in the world that got these anxiety attacks, fight or flight, heart racing a million miles an hour. So I just assumed it was maybe I was drinking a little too much, or maybe I was not sleeping enough, or what I was doing to my body was responsible. And I just had to fight my way through it. But eventually, thank God, I kind of learned what the triggers were, and those were some of them. Don't party so hard, don't sleep so little, take care of yourself a little bit. And then the other factor was to just, when you had those moments, get out of yourself. Mentally, I had to, I was young, so I was obsessing about how am I doing? How do I compare? All the questions that we have when we're young that are so prone to causing us anxiety. And I just learned to quickly shut that thinking down. Dwayne Danes has a rule for his own journey. When he had his spinal cord injury and, he would have that regret about not being able to walk again or ride the way he did, he just said, I gave myself 5 minutes a day. That's it. I could have a 5-minute moment to have a feeling of pity, but I would shut it down at 5 minutes. And I kind of did the same thing. I just learned, and I also learned to fight through it. I learned that if I just could get through that 1 minute, it would start to go away. But boy, it was a battle for I kind of felt it from the time I was 18 to the time I was 30, and then I would still have attacks even in my later 30s. And knock on wood, it seems to have finally disappeared for good. And that's important. It's a hopeful lesson for anyone who's suffering anxiety now. It does eventually go away. But it's also, when you're young and somebody says you're going to be feeling this for the next 15, 20 years, that's a frustrating thing to hear. But just know your triggers and know how to take care of your body. Ted, we've talked.
Oh yeah, well and I'm not sure how I came across Cornered in the first place, or I think I was at the bookstore one day and noticed it and wanted to read it, and that was at a time when I was having a lot of trouble, and we met up at the Stampede there last summer, and we talked about it a lot. But your book helped me a lot, so I want to say thanks for sharing your story, because I think I was in the exact same position. I thought I was the only one that was having those attacks, and I didn't realize it, right?
For sure, and that is same in sports. Everybody hides an injury or at least a worry. You need teams, and the good guys. Gretzky was a great player for going over and seeing that somebody just wasn't right, and what could I do? And don't feel like you're the only one. And it's really important, even in solo sports. And rodeo's great at it, but it's important to be in it together, right? Collaboration is the only way we make it in this world. You need friends, you need family, whatever it is that gives you someone other than yourself to concern yourself with. As Mother Teresa said, you want to help yourself, help someone else. And that, for me and you, I think is a sort of golden rule.
Well, and I think that on my side of things, it's helping with Ty's Foundation, and whether it be shipping T-shirts and hats and whatnot, there's just a lot of different things that way.
There's a guy with cancer in St. John, New Brunswick, David Kelly, who's a longtime equipment manager of the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League Sea Dogs, and he created a campaign, and it's incredible how him doing, advocacy and good work has changed his whole life. He just, he's living with cancer. It's not a big deal. And because he's doing something for someone else. That is what I did in broadcasting for sure, was to just stop thinking about how am I coming across and worry about how are Wacey and Ted coming across and etc. And then you sort of escape the prison of yourself. Because that's, the great teachings even hundreds of years ago, Shakespeare, not to get too artsy-fartsy, but Shakespeare, that was everything. Hamlet ultimately perished of thinking too well. And when you think well and you dwell, you're in line for a bit of trouble. Judy Rankin, a golfer, I used to do golf with Judy, and she also said, good to be busy because you have no time to dwell. And I do think that's one of the secrets.
I totally agree. That's when I'm at my best, is when I'm doing lots of stuff. So I totally agree.
Yeah.
But
when I would go in and referee a hockey game, if I got to the rink 90 minutes early, I was terrible.
Oh.
I would actually pull out my rule book and I'd start to think, right? It's a funny, I do go two ways, like I kind of have two ways of looking at everything, but I do think in broadcasting, you do have to overthink it. So when you hear someone say, don't overthink it, I know what they mean. They are saying don't dwell and don't, work yourself into a lather and sap yourself of energy and thought. But on the other hand, you do need to work hard. You do need to prepare. You do need to think about how to make it. We're writing the opening for Kitchener a month out. So we're overthinking it because it's what we do, right? And so there are two sides to that story, but automatic. If you're feeling tense, you're grinding, and you're grinding because you're thinking too much on that particular occasion. So get out of it.
It always helps to talk to somebody. That was a big part of it for me, was telling other people about it. And it probably helped you to write the book too.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And it helped me back in the day to talk about it. The more conversations you have about, I think, vulnerability and our shared weaknesses and our shared just ordinariness. There's a great book called Stole This From a Hockey Card by a guy from Ottawa, Chris. It's right on the tip of my tongue. Anyway, it's a story of Doug Harvey. Doug Harvey was the best defenseman of his time. Chris Robin. Doug Harvey was the 7-time Norris Trophy winner. He was the best player in the game, and he was also a raging alcoholic. And it was like, he's not this or that. He is this and that. And I always like that, that no matter how, I always sort of look at our own performance in life, and we're partly little miracles and we're partly a little bit of muck or mud. That's just normal. And it takes a long time to, you have to carry sometimes a thorn to remind you, okay, that's just got to stop. You're going to kill yourself or you're going to kill someone else. But for the most part, forgiveness of yourself and forgiveness of others is a really wonderful recipe.
Speaking to that point, what was it like for you that year away from Hockey Night in Canada?
Well, I really was looking forward to the hometown hockey. I just thought at that point in my career, it was a great thing I was still going to do Coach's Corner, so I'd still be on a thing that was, an exciting and part of the Saturday night, although I would have been okay if I just did Sundays. Dawn's going to be great with or without. I always said, we were talking the other night, if I ever left, I'd love Dawn to do his Andy Rooney. And some people are too young to know what that is, but there was a guy on CBS 60 Minutes, a Sunday night news show, and he would come in, Andy Rooney was his name, and he would come in with about a minute and a half rant, and it was fantastic. And Dawn could do that till, he's 110. But anyway, I looked forward to Rogers Hometown Hockey, and I just know what that show can be. It's a chance to interact with the kids, a chance to tell the story of somebody in the communities all across the country, to show that we're all the same. Simple as that. And then I got back on Hockey Night, and I almost regretted it because now I have those stressful travel days. But the beauty of the two together is that when I roll in Cochrane, let's say, and they can say, "Good grief, Ron, what Don Cherry said last night, what did you think about that?" So there's that real excitement of sharing the two shows. And I kind of look at it that we bring the Canadians to the NHL on Saturday night, and then we take the NHL to the community on Sunday night, which is half the excitement. So it's worked out great. And I have never, and I don't think I ever would, hopefully, be upset if it ended tomorrow. I kind of go by that Jimmy Buffett. If it suddenly ended tomorrow, I'd smile and say it's okay. It's just, I'm grateful for what I do, but I'm pretty confident that whatever the next phase would be equally, I get as big a kick out of playing beer league hockey as I get out of doing Hockey Night in Canada. So I don't think it takes much to, a cold beer, good conversation. Doesn't take much to have a good time. You don't need money for those.
Never.
Not much, anyway.
No, enough to buy the cold beer. What's next for you, though, Ron?
Well, for now, I think they're going to really enjoy this little bit of a ride. I think the hometown hockey's got some legs, so I would like to see if I could do that for the rest of the contract that Rogers has, which is about 8 years left. And then I'd be 65-ish. So, at that point, I would think I'd have to slow down a little. Don's not going to go on forever. So they might be deciding on the Saturday night to make the change. And I would be content to just do Sundays. Or, I've always wanted in my mind, I don't know how I would teach, but I would love to teach. So that would be sort of a way to back off. If I stopped doing the TV stuff altogether, then I could do speeches, occasionally. Those are usually good income while you're famous, which is about 4 or 5 years. And then nobody knows who you are. But I could do some speeches for a couple of years and around the country, and that could be my money. And then I could teach at a, Polytechnical Institute or a journalistic school. And I would enjoy immensely because like I've always said, no matter whether I'm doing hometown hockey or I'm speaking, there's two teachers in the room. You're sort of giving your view of things. And then, if it wasn't a podcast and if I wasn't the guest, I would be picking your brain and we would be hearing both sides of the story, which would be probably a better idea. But I would love that. So that's next is just either teaching or doing one show, not both.
I guess the guys in Toronto wouldn't want to travel either. It's quite the process to pick up and take that truck on the road and logistically like do a show from the road. It's not too simple to get the rest of the crew on the road either, is it?
For the Saturday night, you mean?
Yeah, like they want to keep that in Toronto. That's not going to move or anything.
Well, no, not necessarily, but there was talk, in year 1 or 2 when Rogers took over, there was talk that the sort of template or the idea of the Sunday show becomes Hockey Night in Canada. And so you're not off on that. I think, they might say in 4 or 5 years, okay, we can't do hometown hockey anymore. Let's make Hockey Night in Canada hometown hockey styling. And I think that would be great. I really do. So that's a good suggestion, and it's sort of an idea that has been percolating. But for now, if they can do it the way they're doing it, I think they obviously can sell 2 nights. That's the big thing for Rogers, right? They've got $5 billion invested in this, and they're trying to have basically a network night 3 times a week. Wednesday night hockey, just Scotiabank sponsored, Rogers hometown hockey, and then the big show Saturday night. That, if they can successfully pull off 3 network nights, then they think they can make the money they spent when they got the rights.
This is totally incredible to me. I'm learning a lot as we go here too.
Well, I'll ask you a question then.
Yeah.
It's like when you think of great communities, or when you think of the great rodeos, which are the little rodeos? Like, I guess Ponoka would be one that jumps out right at the forefront for me. But what are the rodeos that you think capture the spirit of the sport?
Well, I think one of them is where we're at right now today here. We're bucking bulls in the backyard in McGrath, Alberta, in the Little River Valley. It's pure, right? Like, it's bull riding, and there's a few people here, and it's real. Or even Elnora is another really cool bull riding we do, where it's just a little tiny little place. You know where Elnora is, and it's
yes.
It's just the real deal. It's just we're doing it because we love it,
Yeah, that's for all that we do. Same with Hockey Night in Canada or Rogers Hometown Hockey. That when you kind of tap into that, then I think you have a good show. You need a story. You always need I was trying to think, I'll give you an example of how I was trying to work through the opening weekend of Hockey Night in Canada and hometown hockey. So I always have to think, okay, what am I going to say Saturday night? And what do I want to say Sunday night? And so my idea for Sunday night, my original idea, was a poem by Robert Frost. Well, it wasn't even a poem. It was just the guy that wrote poetry called Robert Frost. He used to say, if I ever know the ending of my poem in advance of writing it, it's always a lousy poem. I can't know the ending of the poem when I'm starting out, or I'll never do a good job. I got to start writing and see where it goes. And I love that. I love that metaphor. So I thought that was a good idea for Sunday night for hometown hockey. But then the more I thought about it, the more I wanted to go a little bit of a different direction Sunday and use that on the Saturday. I don't know if I will. We're a month away and things change. But for now, I like the idea that last year in October, the very first weekend of the season, we met this kid with osteosarcoma cancer, Alex Louie, and we told him we would get him to see his hero, Ovechkin. And he went to see Ovechkin in Toronto in November, and Ovechkin scored a hat trick. And he went to see Ovechkin at the outdoor game in Annapolis, Maryland. Then he went to see Ovechkin when Ovechkin won the Stanley Cup. And it was like, can't write that stuff. And that's like Robert Frost's idea, right? You start out with this idea, and you have no idea that it's going to become the miracle it became. And to see those two guys together in November, and again at a Stanley Cup parade in Washington, D.C., I mean, that was just too good to be true. And you could say that about the Vegas Golden Knights story, and you could say that about the Winnipeg Jets, Mark Scheifele, and on and on. And so for now, that's where I'm at with Hockey Night in Canada Show 1 on October 6th. Is Robert Frost always said, if you know the ending in advance of writing, it'll be lousy. So here we go. Fresh sheet. let's see what the story becomes. So that's just how you work, right? And that's for sure. It's real.
I want to ask what you get nervous for still, or what you get excited about still in doing this for, over 30 years now.
I don't know if nervous was the word, but I remember introducing the Tragically Hip's last show from the Copacabana Beach in Rio de Janeiro, and I was not nervous, but I was anxious to get it right, and I did screw it up. I got the names of the band right, I got the whole gist of what I was saying right, but I quoted a song lyric from my favorite Tragically Hip song, which is The Wherewithal, and the lyric in the song is, I always loved that guy, he's not on TV anymore, get out before he had the wherewithal. But when I said it on live television, 10 million viewers, I said, I always liked that guy. He's not on TV anymore. He had the wherewithal to get out. I got it wrong. I said it wrong. No one would know because it's not a big Tragically Hip song. But frick, as I did it, I was thinking, what have I just done? I can't believe it. And I still had to go on for it was only like 2 minutes. And I had to kind of switch gears and into the rest of my intro. And I had thought long and hard about it, overthought it, as I say. But it was just a moment I remember being anxious because there was so many moving parts. And there's lots of those moments. When I'm waiting to close the Stanley Cup, Scott and Elliot are on the ice interviewing the players. And for anybody listening, I'm in an arena parking lot. There's cars and sirens and so often. That's why. Anyway, I closed the Stanley Cup, and I'm sitting there, and Scott and Elliot doing the interviews, and it's great, and the cup's been won, and it's about an hour and 15, 20 minutes, and then it's me for like 90 seconds to sum up Hockey Night in Canada the year that was. And it's live, right? And you're just sort of sitting there thinking over that hour and a half. Now, for heaven's sakes, get out of yourself, Ron. This is not about the last 90 seconds on Hockey Night in Canada this year. I have to do all those self-talks just to prevent anxiety even to this day, and just kind of roll with it as best I can when the moment happens and I'm supposed to cleverly tie this up. I think going forward, I have a speech at Lakehead University in Thunder Bay on the 22nd, and that's to students. There's certain speeches you do that you feel a little more, like when I go to Innisfail Eagles for Brian Sutter and speak at their hockey banquet, it's lighthearted, it's fun. But when I speak to kids, students especially, that are, kind of critical and discerning, that'll cause me a little bit of, I wouldn't use the word anxiety, but I'll be anxious to get it right.
We haven't talked a whole bunch about hockey yet. You just mentioned a moment with Ovechkin this last year and the young boy that saw him 3 different places, like you're saying. What would be your favorite hockey moment so far?
That's a good one. I will say doing my first ever Stanley Cup Finals broadcast. So I did 2 years of the Calgary Flames, 84, 85, and then I went down to Hockey Night in Canada, and then I got to work my first ever playoff game was at the arena in St. Louis. They used to call it the Checker Dome, and I just remember the energy. So I would liken it to Cowboy getting that first CFR, first NFR would be unbelievable, right? To qualify for NFR and actually experience it. So that really jumps out at me as of all the things. It was kind of like, okay, now you're in the big time. This is I used to go up and down Highway 2 doing the Red Deer Rustler Junior A hockey broadcasts, and when we get to about Didsbury, I'd wonder if they even get CKRD at night in Didsbury, or if they can get it in Carstairs. And you knew that the reach of your little radio broadcast wasn't much. But then you went to CFAC's Channels 2 and 7 in Calgary, and you thought, well, I bet you a lot of Southern Alberta can see this. And then you did Hockey Night in Canada, and you thought, and again, I hate to think that way, but it was just a nice badge of honor to be doing Hockey Night in Canada and the Stanley Cup at once. For a kid, that was a media kid, that was a nice moment. And so it has to be a highlight. And then the Salt Lake City gold medals of the men and women, probably I'd put them second as the only time I found myself almost actively cheering for an outcome. And Canada needed it. The men hadn't won in 50 years. And Pat Quinn was a lovely guy. He was the coach, and Gretzky's an incredible guy. He was the architect of the team. And that was a special one.
Who have been some of your favorite people along the way that way?
This summer, when we went for dinner, I went for dinner on Tuesday night with Brian Burke, Elliot Friedman, David Amber, myself, and spouses. And unfortunately, Nick Kyprios was his anniversary, so he was unable to come. And Kelly Rudy's in Calgary, so he couldn't come. And Don Cherry's in Wolf Island, Kingston. He wouldn't come, but he wouldn't go to dinner anyway. He hates that kind of thing. So we sat around, and I just asked the guy, so what was your favorite hockey story of the summer? Because I was in Canmore at the Alberta Sports Hall of Fame with Vernon and Fuhr and Hal Coates and Bill Peters, the new Calgary coach, and down in Digby, Nova Scotia with Rick Bowness and a bunch of NHLers, and then up in Parry Sound with Bobby Orr, not to name drop, but, all over the summer you do charity work. I heard so many really fun and interesting stories, and the one I told Elliot Friedman to ask Connor McDavid when they did the interviews in Chicago today. He's interviewing Connor McDavid as we do this podcast. To ask him about one-timing a puck, because Steven Stamkos of Tampa and Connor McDavid of the Oilers, they trained together with Gary Roberts. And one day, Connor was saying, hey, Steven, could you teach me to one-time a puck? I'm brutal at it. So they each had 25 pucks, and Stamkos hit the net 24 to 25, and I won't say what Connor did, but it wasn't great. And so that was just I just loved the idea that Connor's still working at trying to improve. And that's how they are, right? Everywhere you go, I was working with PK Subban and Austin Matthews on some Scotiabank shoots. We did 21 episodes of a thing that'll run on Wednesdays this year. And again, to see them comparing notes was just priceless, and PK actually told Austin, I'd like you to use a longer stick. Imagine the audacity, but that's Subban for you. He knows every stick, every curve, every pattern. He's just a fanatic about that stuff. And he was saying to Austin Matthews of the Maple Leafs, you should use a longer stick.
That's wow.
Those are the fun things.
And that's I don't know the hockey world very well. Wacey's way more in depth in the hockey side of things. But our rodeo announcers and folks talk about how our guys help each other out, and it's kind of, our competitors we're competing against the animals more so than the other guy. So our people will help each other out a lot. But it sounds like that's the same exact thing with hockey, though. The guys might play.
Yes, they do. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of secrets. It used to be that coaches shared. There used to be coaches symposiums where they shared stuff. Not anymore. The stakes are so high. It's really pretty tight-lipped, and even players are, but they're not. I heard Matthews and Subban talk about their diet and compare notes on which company was supplying the food that shows up at their door each morning. There's a breakfast, lunch, and dinner pre-made that's got, all the right ingredients. And as fate would have it, PK and Austin used the same one. And this particular service only services California and Arizona. And PK is in California all summer training, and Austin lives in Arizona. So that was a neat story again. But you saw it at the best example, of course, steer wrestling at the Calgary Stampede. How many guys, benefited from a horse, and how many guys got, the hazing. One guy hazes for another, and then he goes out and tries to win the, 100,000, and then he turns around and tries to mess himself up by helping the other guy who could beat him.
Yeah.
And you got to love that, right?
Totally. Part of why I love this sport. Being on the interviewer side of things most of the time, what is something that you might not ever get asked that you want to talk about? I'm curious about that.
Well, I did like the question about what are you reading? It's a simple question, but as I say, I regret that I didn't read more when I was younger. I'm 58 years old now. And the only other story I would, you talk about post-traumatic stress disorder. My wife, Carrie, had a pulmonary embolism, which is a blood clot to the lungs or heart that can kill you. And she got through it. I was playing hockey one night when the firefighters came and grabbed me and told me, get to the hospital. Your wife's in there. And they said, it'll be okay. But it wasn't going to be okay. It was a hell of a night. Amazing emergency room doctor got Carrie, my wife, through that. And then I went to Royal University Hospital for the Broncos. And I was right back in that. And even Brian Burke was saying the other night, I have a hard time with this Broncos crash because he lost his son, Brendan, in a car crash. So that isn't something that I really have an answer to. It's like the concussion story. But I just have such respect for first responders and emergency room doctors who deal with this high stress lifestyle, and to sustain that high stress lifestyle and actually have a life in front of you. It's just so unbelievable to me. And I really, there's one thing that I talk about, when I'm really on a roll. It's just what it was like in ER the night that Carrie was saved, and then what it was like in ICU 36 hours after the Bronco crash, and to see basically 8 Frankensteins put together by miracle workers and kept alive. That was just all the things I'll ever see. I'm sure Don Cherry will vouch for this. Of all the things I'll ever see, that'll be the one that sticks.
I don't even know where to start with that, Ron. I mean, the only thing I can even closely compare it to is when I got a phone call from Scott talking about Ty, and it was just unbelievable, that's the closest thing to us, and you guys with the hockey community, it's just really truly unbelievable. And I don't know how to, there's really just no words to put into something like that.
No, and there again, you rely on friends, right? If I didn't have Dwayne Danes get me involved in the spinal cord injury, I wouldn't have been in intensive care units. Like I went to see a good buddy of his up in Innisfail. Bob Blair was hurt badly, and so I saw him at Foothills right after the crash, horse accident, right? Just fell off a horse. But you always are grateful for the people in your life that kind of introduce you to these new ideas, and that gets you. Like I can't tell you how the Broncos impressed. Kevin Gehringer has stepped down now. A lot of the doctors and nurses who were in that night had to take a break. The post-traumatic of it is just unbelievable. And Kevin Gehringer, the president of the Broncos, when you went in and dealt with that team, you swore you were dealing with the Montreal Canadiens or the New York Yankees or the Manchester United, whoever you want to pick, the most professional. It was such a big feeling. It was just so impressive that this junior A team and Humboldt, Saskatchewan could be, and at the NHL awards when Christina, the wife of Darcy Hogan, the coach who died in the crash, when she read his mission statement about what he expected from his players, it was unbelievable. And I'll get that probably in Parry Sound. Bobby Orr, he put it up in the rink in Parry Sound, his hometown, the mission statement. And it's really every minor hockey, every rodeo, dressing room should have this mission statement in it. It's just an homage to being a good person, and you love it. You hate the tragedy, and for all the people so severely impacted and what remains of that grief battle that they're in. But God, it was incredible to see what doctors and nurses could do, and first responders, police, firefighters, ambulance, paramedics, and it was impressive to see that in Humboldt you had a hockey program on par with anything that you would ever see. That was really heartening. So I enjoyed that.
Well, and you mentioned it should be in every rodeo dressing room, and a lot of our rodeo dressing rooms are hockey dressing rooms, right? Rodeo and hockey aren't maybe super tightly knit, but they're a lot closer than I think some folks might think. So again, yeah. Ron, I super appreciate you taking the time to do this, and we'll let you get on to your next appointment here. But I thank you so much, and I look forward to catching up again soon somewhere.
My total honor, Ted and Wacey. Thanks a bunch, and we'll see you down the road.
Thanks, Ron.
You're listening to Cowboy Shit with Ted and Wacey, brought to you by Everything Cowboy.
We've been sitting on that one for quite a while. Ron, we talked to him back in September, and we've been saving it for a time. And we had a guest cancel last minute on us. We're gonna catch up with him in a little bit, but we've been sitting on this one and waiting on it, so it worked out really well.
People have been wanting. I've been getting asked about when's the next Ron pod coming out.
So finally, we delivered, and
You're
we put
welcome.
out the second Ron cast. So thanks again, Ron MacLean, the legend, the icon,
amazing,
one of the most
guy.
famous people in the whole country, and he was on Cowboy Shit.
Canadian icon.
Can you believe it?
A lot of people are not going to believe it.
But that was the real Ron MacLean. Thanks again, Ron, for being on the show. Next show is going to come out in the middle of March.
Some point in March.
And we're going to have 4-time world champion bareback rider Bobby Moat, president of the World Champions Rodeo Alliance, WCRA. Remember back to April 2018, we spoke with Bobby about the May launch of the WCRA and all their plans to enhance rodeo. We'll follow up with Bobby and see how things are going. It's going to be good.
That'll be good. Yeah, it's cool how much educated he is with it all, and he's how into it.
Did you know that since the launch last May of the WCRA and his partners have paid out over $3 million in prize money?
I just seen that on their homepage.
You just read that?
That's pretty cool.
I'm glad that you did your homework. They also have some big money events coming up this spring with the newly added Western quarterfinals for the Tyne events with $120,000 guaranteed. The second $500,000 semifinals mid-May at the Lazy E in Guthrie. And the recently announced one-night $1 million rodeo, the Titletown Stampede in Green Bay, which is their co-pro alongside the PBR.
So they're going to be a PBR event in conjunction with that.
Yeah, same time, same
nice.
weekend.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, so we're excited to talk to Bobby in our next podcast. In the meantime, if you want to know more, visit WCRArodeo.com.
This was episode 33 of Cowboy Shit with Ted and Wacey, brought to you by Everything Cowboy.